Today on the Topping Show, Dove launches a campaign against beauty, feds investigate Bud Light for advertising to children, Montana bans TikTok, Chick-fil-A closes their very first store, Taco Tuesday trademark is under attack, Honda to stop making gas mowers in the United States, Nintendo breaks records with their new Zelda video game, Dave Chappelle roasts San Francisco for literally being a shitty place to live, and Hyundai Kia settle for $200 million for their business blunder of having cars too easy to steal. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you for tuning in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller service company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder released twice today. Gotta say, he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me. That's a joke. If you're a IT leader or a business owner, use a little assistance with your IT, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Now, going on to the business part of the podcast, you have Nintendo's Zelda breaking records. In a mere 3 days of the release, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom became the fastest selling Nintendo game and selling in the US about 10 million copies. Reporter Axios estimates revenue of $700 million, and it's already becoming the best video game for the Nintendo Switch console. This isn't too surprised since if you look at the intellectual property that Nintendo has developed throughout their lifetime, two of the biggest titles are any game that has Mario in it, and then of course Zelda. Granted, in terms of my involvement, the last thing I played I believe was Zelda Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. A game so old you had to have a special RAM expansion pack just so that it could handle the marvelous graphics, which of course nowadays are comical in contrast, except with the Facebook metaverse. Retro burn, kind of. Now, other interesting business news, you have Taco Tuesday. The trademark is under attack. So I always wondered, why doesn't every company use that phrase, Taco Tuesday, since between people on the streets and the office, it's a cliche as old as I can remember of everyone talking about, oh, it's Tuesday, gotta get tacos, which is a food delivery system that people in the United States are incredibly addicted and fascinated with. I actually just had my first taco in Texas maybe 6 weeks ago. It's a Texas-based taco company, and they have some great tacos, and it's moderately delicious. It has some nice salmon in it, but there are some people that go fanatic and just really love tacos. Now, I looked into it, and it looks like the trademark of Taco Tuesday was originally granted to a company called Taco John's, and I believe they have about 400 locations, really not as big as the company that's suing for it. So Yum Brands, which is the parent company behind Taco Bell filing the trademark lawsuit. Now, Yum Brands is bigger than you could ever possibly imagine. They're actually a spin-off of PepsiCo, which Pepsi also owns Frito-Lay, so it used to be even greater, but nevertheless, currently Yum Brands is the parent company headquartered in Plano, Texas, and they own the properties, or rather the brands and businesses of Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC, and Wing Street. So if you ever wonder, well, wait a minute, why do they all have Pepsi products? Well, they used to be owned by Pepsi, and odds are they probably have a strategic business relationship ongoing as well. Now, Yum Brands is petitioning the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to, quote-unquote, liberate the phrase from Taco John's. And they go on to say that they would like the phrase for, quote, to all who make, sell, eat, and celebrate tacos, unquote. Now, it is interestingly enough, they're not suing to get the trademark for themselves, which a lot of folks, when the news first broke, and of course you only read the headline, they thought they were just doing it so that they themselves get the intellectual property. It looks like they want to open up to everyone. Although the downside of that is, in doing so, pretty much Taco Bell would be synonymous with the phrase, since in terms of market share, they would just steamroll the competition. I mean, there are so many more stores of Taco Bell, and of course, they have more marketing dollars than you could possibly imagine to actually put a campaign behind this. So, it's one of those things where I'm going to have to side with Taco John's in this case. They're the ones who came up with a brilliant idea, and also importantly, they made sure they got legal protection for that idea. I've never been to a Taco John's, but they came up with the idea. I think they should probably keep it, as it makes their brand unique, and they were smart enough to capitalize and seize the opportunity. Other interesting restaurant news, you have Chick-fil-A closing their first ever store. Now, the first store opened in 1967 in a Greenbrier Mall food court in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be closing this last Saturday, and it was noted to be, quote, a pioneer in the modern day food court. And for the first 20 years of business of Chick-fil-A, they exclusively opened in malls in terms of their physical locations. And it's one of those things where they didn't give an official statement of why they might be closing that, but just common sense. We've all read the foot traffic at physical malls are down exponentially. They're just getting worse throughout time. A lot of people are knowing the rise of e-commerce being the main competition and reason why malls are just decreasing in popularity. And I doubt it, but I really hope someone at Chick-fil-A or the mall who owns the signs will save those signs from the Chick-fil-A store and preserve them for historical purposes. If you're only listening on the podcast and you're not viewing it, I have like 5 to 10 signs behind me. And they're all defunct businesses of Blockbuster, Radio Shack, Pure One Imports, Toys R Us. And Chick-fil-A is still around. They're growing exponentially. And a lot of people attribute them for being religiously based. Even though they're closed on Sunday, they make more revenue than their competition that are open 7 days a week, which is an astronomical mark of business success. And actually did, not to toot my own horn, but I did have Chick-fil-A for the first time ever. I believe it was 4 or 5 months ago when I took my IT team out for lunch. And it was pretty good. Now, it'd be interesting to see, but so hopefully the odds are so small, but if you are somehow connected with that mall and you're listening, send me a message or in the comments or send me an email, and my company will buy the sign just because that'd be a great piece of restaurant history and business history to preserve. Now, other sad business news, you have Honda. They're going to stop making their gas mowers. And it's even more disappointing because they used to be made in the USA, which nowadays is a rare feat in and of itself due to a myriad of reasons. From you have minimum wage laws, you have regulations, and you have taxes. There are a lot of reasons that make it very difficult to open a manufacturing business in the United States. The tech company I own, many of the things that we sell in terms of IT hardware, those are all made over, unless you have a DoD contract or a very specific piece of security software, or rather hardware, it's all manufactured overseas for the most part. Granted, the United States has increased their manufacturing, or rather their development of software, which many of those are headquartered in the United States, but manufacturing has been under attack for decades thanks to politicians, and again, it's very difficult so for Honda to be closing that down and those jobs to be going away is quite disappointing. And of course, it's going to affect their U.S. factory. And when asked about it, they said, quote, "The decision to end lawnmower production is driven by market forces such as strict environmental regulations, shifting consumer preferences, and our focus on a growing profitable products in our portfolio," unquote. Now, interestingly enough, when asked if it was going to go out, have a global trend of Honda's decrease in manufacturing on gas engines for lawnmowers, they said, quote, "Notably, though, it's not a complete end to gasoline-powered Honda tools, though. Honda will continue to sell the remainder of its lawn garden product line in industrial-powered products such as the GS engine generators and pumps, and continue to support its service for the legacy products in the United States. Notably, Honda isn't shutting down production worldwide. A dealer noted that," unquote, apologies. A spokesperson for Honda UK stated that the company has no plans to curtail production for the European market, and assurance within Europe, Honda Motor Europe produces petrol lawnmowers at our Honda France manufacturing facility and is committed to producing the entire lineup, unquote. So unfortunately, it sounds like they're going to import electric lawn mowers, which, again, it's one of those things where everyone keeps pushing EV technologies, saying it's green in terms of the environment. It's very much more of a complex issue and complex question when you consider where the lithium comes from, how it's mined, what's the total life cycle of the product. When my IT company recycles a data center or laptops or anything like that, we can recycle a whole warehouse of servers, storage, and switches. The most expensive thing to recycle out of that whole warehouse will be the little shoebox size of cell phones with the lithium-ion batteries packed in. Because lithium is a very volatile battery. They explode. The cost to recycle them properly is very currently prohibitively expensive. There are companies that are on the bleeding edge that are setting up manufacturing facilities to try to get the process and the cost down, but it's hazardous, much, much more hazardous than lead acid batteries, which are infinitely recyclable. That's a big core of what Interstate Batteries does, another great Texas-based company. And they, rudimentarily speaking, they have a facility where you have hazmat suits, proper ventilation. You basically crush up the old batteries, recycle them, recharge them. It's a very, in terms of the life cycle of the product, very environmentally friendly. And if you look at the reliability of a gas-powered lawnmower, especially a Honda lawnmower, those things will last a lifetime. I mean, it's one of those things where, just like a Toyota Corolla, it'll hit 1,000,000 miles. It's the most popular car in history by the number of units sold. Even eclipsed the Ford Model T, which was revolutionary at the time. But again, for me, anecdotally, from my experience, one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. When I first started to rent a house, I had an issue where I didn't have a mower. And a friend said I could borrow his. I was very appreciative before I realized it was electric. I'll never forget, I rent a very small house, and the grass is relatively small square footage as well. Maybe 300 square feet grass. Nevertheless, I was only halfway through attempting to mow the lawn before the batteries crapped out. And they're standard lithium-ion batteries. And there's nothing more frustrating than if you're mowing on a hot Saturday or Sunday and you're full sweat, you got the Texas heat, you're halfway through the chores of yard maintenance, and then you have to sit down and wait 30, 40, 60 minutes for the battery to recharge. Also, it was so bloody weak. I was composting at the time in terms of I didn't use the bag to collect the grass clippings, and every couple, maybe one or two passes, the blade would stop because it didn't have enough juice to actually properly cut grass, which is not a very hard object to hit with a blade unless it's electric. I know DeWalt and all other brands make ones with more beefier batteries. The one I was using was a Walmart branded Hart. I believe it was HARDT, which is the in-brand line of tools that they own. But yeah, a frustrating experience to be sure. And it's hard to beat. Again, Wisconsin-made gas-powered Briggs and Stratton engines. Those are quite reliable, and that's the biggest pretty much the biggest OEM manufacturer aside from Honda they make the engine, and many brands utilize that engine. So buy them while you can, because time shall tell to see. But in terms of the business of why Honda is doing this, it's also because California is one of the largest markets in the United States for now. Most people are escaping as the refugees move to other states that don't tax them or regulate them to death. But they're banning gas generators, gas lawnmowers, pretty much gas everything in California. I believe the sunset or the time is 2025 or 2030. They're also banning gas cars in California, even though the electric grid cannot support the current electric uses of the current electric EV fleets there, and it currently has a myriad of blackouts throughout the year, or brownouts. I forget the technical term the electrical industry uses. But again, short-term decision making, time shall tell to see which one is really better long-term for a user, for the environment, and of course for your bank account. What's going to be the best ROI or return on investment for you?